Hi everyone, now with almost every smartphone filmmaking app there are hundreds of features, buttons and different modes that you can utilize. But what if I said there's one feature or technique that you are not taking advantage of enough? Well, that feature is called a rack focus. Now what is a rack focus? Rack focus is when you change the focus during a shot. You're not changing the focus before or after a take, it's during the filming itself. And in this video, I'm going to show you all the benefits of using a rack focus and how to most effectively use it. Let's get into it. Now, one of the key benefits of a rack focus is that it can really breathe life into a three-dimensional world that you're creating. When you've got a shot that's just kind of flat, for example, this chair that you can see now, it gets a little bit lost in this image and you could easily just ignore it. Whereas if you actually create more depth, put something in front of the camera that's creating a shallow depth of field, put the focus on that plant or whatever you have that's a shallow depth of field, keep your main subject, like this chair that's ominous because it looks like someone was sat in it and you need the audience to guess exactly what's just happened. You can then pull that rack focus to the chair into a deeper depth of field, creating a much more three-dimensional world. If you just have a static shot of that chair face on, it does look quite boring and quite dull and very two-dimensional, very flat. And as a phone has quite a small sensor, you want to use some trickery like this and techniques to create more depth in your images. So use a rack focus to breathe life and more of a three-dimensional world with more layers to it with a rack focus. And one of the best reasons I can give you for using a rack focus in your filmmaking projects is it can be used for literally any genre and any type of filming. So let's take this shot for example. We've got the main character here in the top left of the grid guide showing you that this is where you want the audience to look at. So again, using this to be purposeful. And you can actually create an automatic rack focus or focus pull. So in Cinema P3, you tap A, that line on the right for focus turns green just like the letter A, and you can do the same for B. So you move that line in the focus line manually to select that second point. Once you've done that, you can then tap A, B, or even C if you want a third point, back and forth to create a really nice moment in your filmmaking. Now, you can actually create this and move the camera at the same time, so you're getting more advanced. So here we've got the main character A, focus point A, and we're going to tap B and move the camera at the same time. That way you're creating a really nice moment. And of course you can use this for a few different ways, as I said. So you can create a focus pull in a way that's going to give a comedic effect, or if you want to, you can create a bit more of a horror effect. And of course you can create a much more dramatic effect. This really is a limitless technique for your smartphone filmmaking. Now, one of my favorite ways to use a rack focus is to actually put the audience into the character's point of view and in their shoes. So for example, you can make your character feel very overwhelmed by having a shallow depth of field behind them on their head and then pulling away to a deeper depth of field into an overwhelming atmosphere and environment, for example. You could also use it for more of a sinister reason. So if you've got a character who's watching other characters, you can focus pull from a shallow depth of field to where that character's hiding from, and then pushing to a deeper depth of field to reveal what they're looking at or who they're looking at. So it can create lots of different feelings for an audience by putting them in the shoes of the character. Here you can see a frame within a frame shot, a literal frame. Bring that focus really nice and shallow to something really close to you, and then pull that focus away to a deep depth of field to give you a really nice moment in your filmmaking. This works so well with a frame within a frame shot because you're creating distance visually, both physically with what you're seeing and on the screen as well. It's a really good technique. And you can show distance as well. You could have maybe someone in the distance on a bus, for example, and then you can focus to them and pull that focus back to you. When it's raining, like in this shot, there's nothing more movie-like is there than looking through a window pane as it's raining, focusing on those water drops, focusing outside, and then bringing it back to the water drops to create a really nice moment, which within a story of a movie or something can create something really special and impactful to the audience. Now, one of the not so obvious benefits of using a rack focus is it's actually a very cost-effective way of adding production value to your project. So we talk about on this channel about gimbals, ND filters, CPL filters, tripods, handheld rigs, all of those kind of accessories. But actually, for the price of a smartphone filmmaking app, you can get some really useful techniques that cost you nothing extra, i.e. like a rack focus. And you see this all the time in films, TV series, and it's because it's such a useful storytelling technique. And again, very cost effective. Now, in my last short film, Anxiety Train, I used a rack focus to show you what a character has forgotten, so you can actually show things to an audience that are hidden to a character or forgotten by them. So in this scene where Izzy, who's the main character, she's suffering from anxiety. She's about to go off to a party, she's getting herself ready, doing her hair, her makeup, and she's got a bag with a present in for her best friend. Now, at first, she actually forgets it as she's leaving the house and has to come back for it. Now, to make that point to the audience, I changed the focus from the shelving unit where she was doing her hair and makeup to the bag itself with the label that had the information of who it is to, and that's saying that she basically was going to miss her best friend. That's something you can show and not tell by using a rack focus, so you can really give information to an audience using a rack focus as well that the character themselves isn't going to get or isn't going to think about. So really let the audience in on secrets with a rack focus to enhance your storytelling. So why aren't more people using a rack focus or a focus pull in their smartphone filmmaking? Well, I actually think sometimes people feel that because you're smartphone filmmaking, there are certain options and techniques that just aren't available to us. But that's really not true. Of course, there are limitations to smartphone filmmaking compared to a mirrorless camera, for example, but the vast majority of techniques are all in your own hands and what you know how to use practically with the camera. So don't limit yourself, use a rack focus, find moments in your filmmaking that can really impact the audience, and it gives them a chance to see where you want them to focus and tell them what's important in the story or what's important to come in the story. So make sure you really use this and utilize it well to create an impact to your audience. Now, I do actually have a top tip for this technique, and that is simply to not overuse a rack focus. If you use it throughout a video, music video, narrative film, loads and loads and loads, it's going to get really tiresome for an audience member to be watching, and it's going to lose its impact. So you want to make sure you're strategically planting those so that it's really important for the audience when it does happen. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about the smartphone filmmaking app I've been using in this video, then do check out my tutorial on Cinema P3 Pro camera app right here, right now. I have a few more tutorials there as well. Take care, see you on the next one, bye bye.